In the bustling, chaotic heart of modern-day Mumbai, amidst the symphony of honking rickshaws and the endless sea of humanity, a child was born. This was no ordinary birth, you see. The stories that began to circulate were at first whispers, then excited chatter, and finally, front-page news. They said the baby's skin held a subtle, ethereal blue tint, a hue that seemed to deepen under the fluorescent lights of the hospital ward. His eyes, they said, held the wisdom of ages, and his first cry sounded less like a wail, and more like a note from a celestial flute. People were skeptical, of course. This is the 21st century, a time of science and reason, not gods and myths. Yet, the stories persisted, drawing parallels to ancient tales of a divine child born in a prison, a savior destined to restore balance. The child, named Kanha by his bewildered but loving parents, grew with an unnatural grace. He did not speak much in his early years, but his presence was a balm. In his colony, arguments would cease when he walked by, and anxious faces would soften into smiles. The media, ever hungry for a spectacle, descended upon his modest chore. Was this a hoax, a genetic anomaly, or something more? They filmed him playing with street dogs, sharing his tiffin with everyone, and looking at the smog-filled sky with a profound sadness. People began to see in him a reflection of their own forgotten stories, the tales of Krishna that their grandmothers had told them. He was the butter thief, the flute player, the divine lover, all wrapped up in the form of a modern boy living in a world that had seemingly forgotten him. Soon, the world took notice. Spiritual gurus, scientists, politicians, and common folk all flocked to catch a glimpse of this enigmatic child. They came with questions, with doubts, and with a desperate, unspoken hope. They saw a boy who could explain the complex workings of a smartphone with the same ease as he could recount tales of the Mahabharata. He was not a god of ritual and dogma, demanding worship. Instead, he was a god of conversation. A friend who sat with you, offered you a vada pav, and spoke of Dharma not as an ancient rule book, but as a living, breathing principle of cosmic balance. His playground was not the pastoral fields of Vrindavan, but the concrete jungle of a megacity, and his concerns were not with demons of myth, but the very real demons of our own creation. His coming of age was not marked by the slaying of a serpent demon like Kaliya, but by his first public address, streamed live to billions across the globe. By then, a young man, his blue-tinged skin was unmistakable, his calm demeanor a stark contrast to the anxious, fast-paced world around him. He did not perform miracles in the traditional sense. He did not turn water into wine or lift mountains with his little finger. His miracle was his clarity. He held up a mirror to humanity and with infinite compassion asked us to look at what we had become. The world had been waiting for a savior, expecting thunder and lightning. Instead, they got a calm voice of reason, a divine friend ready to explain where we had gone so very wrong. The day Krishna, or Kanha as the world now knew him, decided to formally address humanity, it was an event unlike any other. It was not held in a grand temple or a sacred grove, but in a state-of-the-art auditorium with journalists from every major news network present. He walked onto the stage, not in silk and jewels, but in a simple cotton kurta, a gentle smile on his face. The air was thick with anticipation. Why now? Was the question on everyone's lips. Why have you come back to a world of artificial intelligence, space travel, and impending ecological collapse? He took a sip of water, looked at the crowd, and then at the cameras, his eyes connecting with billions of souls watching from their screens. "I am here," he began, his voice calm and resonant, "because you called me." He explained that his arrival was not a matter of a fixed celestial calendar, but a response to a deep collective cry from the heart of humanity and the earth itself. In every age when Dharma, the natural cosmic order of things, is severely threatened, I manifest to help you see the path again. In the time of the Mahabharata, the threat was adharma in the form of greed, ego, and a lust for power that pitted brother against brother. The battlefield was Kurukshetra. Today, the scale is different. The adharma is the same, greed, ego, and a lust for endless consumption. But the battlefield is now the entire planet. Your opponent is not a cousin or an enemy army. It is the consequence of your own actions, your own karma. He elaborated further, making it clear he was not here to fight our battles for us. That was never his way. Remember, in the Great War, I did not lift a single weapon. I was merely the charioteer, the guide for Arjuna. I was there to provide perspective, to clear the fog of confusion and despair, so that he could see his duty, his dharma, and act upon it. My role remains the same today. I am not here to magically clean your rivers or patch the holes in your sky. I am here to be your charioteer, to guide your chariot of modern civilization, which is currently rushing headlong towards a cliff. I am here to help you, the modern Arjuna, see the consequences and choose a different path. Krishna's words were simple, yet they carried the weight of profound truth. He spoke of how humanity had become blinded by its own cleverness, mistaking technological progress for wisdom. You have learned to fly in the air like birds and swim in the sea like fish, but you have forgotten the simple art of living on earth as human beings. You have built machines that can think, but you have forgotten how to feel. The purpose of this avatar is not to give you new rules, but to remind you of the oldest rule of all, that all life is interconnected. The pain you inflict upon the earth, you inflict upon yourselves. It is time to wake up, to see this truth not as a poetic sentiment, but as a scientific and spiritual reality. Krishna then shifted his focus from the why to the what. He began to describe the modern Kurukshetra, not with the poetry of Vyasa, but with the cold hard data of 21st century science. Look around you, he urged, his gesture encompassing the entire world. You see your great cities, your towering buildings, your technological marvels. But I see the fever of a sick planet. The Earth, your mother, Bhumi Devi, is unwell. Her temperature is rising, a condition your scientists call global warming. You burn ancient sunlight, trapped for millions of years as coal and oil, in a matter of decades. This releases a blanket of gases that traps heat, just like a chariot left in the scorching sun of Kurukshetra becomes too hot to touch. This is not a myth. This is physics. He spoke of the oceans, the great reservoirs of life. You look at the sea and see a holiday destination or a shipping lane. I see the heart of the world struggling to breathe. Your factories and cities pour their waste, their plastic refuse, their chemical poisons into the rivers, which carry them to the sea. The oceans are becoming warmer and more acidic, bleaching the vibrant corals that are like the rainforests of the sea. You are choking the very source of much of the air you breathe and the rain that waters your crops. This is not some divine punishment. It is a simple chain of cause and effect. Your actions, your karma, are returning to you in the form of a dying ocean. Then, he addressed the air and the land. You complain about the smog in your cities, the dust that settles on your homes. Where do you think it comes from? It is the breath of your progress, the smoke from your industries, the exhaust from your countless vehicles, the ash from burning forests to make way for farms to feed your ever-growing numbers. And the land itself is tired. You douse it with chemical fertilizers and pesticides, forcing it to yield more and more without letting it rest and rejuvenate. You are treating Bhumi Devi not as a nurturing mother, but as a slave to be exploited. How long do you think she can sustain this abuse before she can no longer provide for you? Krishna's tone was not one of anger, but of deep sorrow and compassion. It was the sadness of a creator watching his most intelligent creation walk willingly towards self-destruction. The greatest challenge of this modern Kurukshetra, he concluded, is that you are all on both sides of the battle. You are the Pandavas, the ones who can see that something is wrong and wish for a better world. But you are also the Kauravas, driven by your habits, your desires for more comfort, more convenience, more wealth, which fuel the very destruction you fear. The war is not outside, it is within each and every one of you. It is a war between your long-term wisdom and your short-term greed. With a heavy heart, Krishna began to outline the potential futures, the different ways in which this story of humanity could reach its final chapter. He spoke not of a single apocalyptic event, but of a slow, cascading failure, an unraveling of the world's delicate systems. The end will not likely come as a sudden cataclysm, a great flood or a fiery meteor as your films imagine it. It will be a slow, painful decline, a gradual loss of the things you take for granted. The first great threat is water. As the planet warms, the ancient glaciers, the frozen rivers of the mountains that feed your great rivers like the Ganga and the Indus, will melt and disappear. At first there will be great floods, but then a great thirst will follow. The rivers will shrink to a trickle, and the fertile plains will turn to dust. He continued, describing the impact on food. Without water there is no agriculture. The great breadbaskets of the world will become barren. Simultaneously, the changing climate will make weather patterns unpredictable and violent. You will see more powerful cyclones, more intense heat waves, and longer droughts. One region will be drowning while another is parched. This will lead to massive crop failures, and food will become scarce and expensive. This scarcity will not be shared equally. It will lead to conflict, to food riots, to wars between nations over the last remaining fertile lands and water sources. The adharma of hoarding and selfishness will become rampant, and neighbor will turn against neighbor for a loaf of bread. Krishna then painted a picture of mass migration and societal breakdown. As their lands become uninhabitable, millions, then hundreds of millions of people will be forced to move. These climate refugees will pour across borders, seeking sanctuary in places that are already strained. This will create immense social and political instability. Fear and xenophobia will rise as resources dwindle. Governments, overwhelmed by the scale of the crisis, may collapse. The complex globalized systems of trade, manufacturing and communication that you depend on will fracture and fall apart. The world you know, a world of interconnectedness and relative order, will slowly dissolve into chaos. Finally, he spoke of the return of ancient diseases. As the world warms, the frozen lands of the north, your permafrost, will thaw. Trapped within that ice are ancient viruses and bacteria that humanity has never encountered. They will be released into a world with no immunity against them. New pandemics, far more deadly than any you have experienced, could sweep across the weakened and malnourished global population. This is not a fanciful tale. It is a real possibility your scientists are deeply concerned about. The end, if it comes, will be a convergence of these crises: famine, war, pestilence, and societal collapse, all born from a single source, a world thrown out of balance by your own hands. Krishna paused, letting the weight of his words settle. He then brought the conversation back to a more personal, familiar story. Let me tell you about a river I once knew well, the Yamuna. In my time, her waters were clear and sweet. We bathed in her, drank from her, and played on her banks. Her life-giving flow was a manifestation of Dharma, a symbol of purity and abundance. Once the serpent demon Kaliya poisoned her waters with his venom, making them toxic to all life. I subdued him and restored the river's purity. This was not just a story about fighting a monster, it was a lesson about confronting and removing that which pollutes and poisons the source of life. You revered this story, yet you failed to see its meaning. He looked at the audience with gentle eyes. Today, you have all become Kaliya. Every city, every factory, every household pumps its own venom, industrial effluents, raw sewage, plastic waste into the Yamuna. You have poisoned her far more effectively than any mythical serpent ever could. The river that was once a goddess is now a toxic drain, a symbol of your neglect and disrespect. You worship me in temples built on her banks, while simultaneously choking her with your refuse. What is this, if not the highest form of adharma? You have turned a story about restoring life into a blueprint for destroying it. The lesson was simple. Protect your water sources. You have done the exact opposite. He then connected this to the broader theme of consumption. Remember the story of my childhood, of stealing butter? It is told as a playful tale, but it holds a deeper meaning. I took only what I needed and often shared it with my friends. It was about the joy of simple pleasures, of community. But you have misinterpreted this. You have turned the desire for a little butter into an insatiable hunger for everything. You want more cars, bigger houses, newer phones, faster fashion. This endless desire, this greed, is the real poison. You are consuming the earth's resources faster than she can replenish them. You are stealing not just from your neighbors, but from your own children, from every future generation, and from all other species on this planet. Krishna concluded this section by invoking the concept of Leela, or divine play. All of creation is a Leela, a divine play. The universe is in a constant dance of creation, sustenance, and dissolution. But a game has rules. Dharma provides the rules for a healthy, joyful, and sustainable game. When you break the rules, the game becomes ugly and destructive, and eventually it ends. You have forgotten that you are players in a divine Leela and have started acting as if you own the playground. You are tearing up the board, breaking the pieces, and fighting over them. The lesson from the Yamuna, from the butterpot, is the same. Live in harmony, take only what you need, and protect the sacredness of the world that sustains you. Drawing on another powerful memory from my past, let me offer a metaphor for the solution. Many of you know the story of Govardhan Hill. The people of my village, Vrindavan, were preparing a grand sacrifice to Indra, the god of rain and thunder, hoping to appease him for good rains. I suggested to them that their true sustainer was not some distant, demanding god in the heavens, but the hill and the forest right in front of them. Govardhan provided pasture for their cows, wood for their fires, herbs for their medicines, and streams for their water. I told them to worship the mountain, to show gratitude to the nature that directly nourished them. Indra, in his arrogance, was angered by this and sent a terrible storm to punish the villagers. To protect my people, I lifted the entire Govardhan hill on my little finger, and everyone, villagers and cattle alike, took shelter beneath it for 7 days until Indra's pride was broken and the storm passed. This story is not about me showing off my divine strength. It is a powerful lesson about where your true security lies. Indra represents a blind faith in a distant power to save you, while Govardhan represents the immediate living ecosystem that you are a part of. The story teaches that your survival depends on your respect for and protection of your local environment. Today, you are all facing a storm of your own making, the storm of climate change. The mountain you must lift today is not made of rock and soil, it is the mountain of collective responsibility. It is a mountain made of sustainable policies, of conscious consumer choices, of technological innovation, and of a fundamental shift in your values. One person cannot lift this mountain alone. I am not here to lift it for you. You must all lift it together. Every individual must contribute their strength, no matter how small it seems. Your little finger could be choosing to use less plastic, conserving water, planting a tree, or demanding that your leaders take climate actions seriously. Every small act adds to the collective strength needed to shelter humanity from the coming storm. Stop looking to the heavens for a miracle. Stop making empty sacrifices and performing hollow rituals while you continue to pollute the very ground you stand on. The new Govardhan Puja is the act of honoring the earth in your daily lives. It is the puja of recycling, of reforestation, of shifting to renewable energy, of supporting local and sustainable agriculture. This is the true worship. Honor the trees, the rivers, the soil, the air. Protect your environment, and your environment will protect you. Lift this mountain of responsibility together, and you will create your own shelter from the storm. Becoming the practical guide, the charioteer, let me lay out a clear path forward. I do not offer magical solutions, but practical, achievable steps rooted in wisdom and modern understanding. The path out of this crisis begins with a change in perspective. You must move from a mindset of ownership to one of stewardship. You do not own this planet. You are its caretakers for a brief moment in time. This means your economies must change. An economy based on infinite growth on a finite planet is the logic of a cancer cell. You must redefine profit and progress. A successful society should be measured not by its GDP, but by the well-being of its people and the health of its environment. We need circular economies where waste is not discarded, but becomes a resource for something new. Do not be overwhelmed by the scale of the problem. Your personal karma, your actions matter immensely. Begin with what you consume. Before you buy something, ask yourself, do I truly need this? Where did it come from? What will happen to it when I'm done with it? Choose quality over quantity. Support local businesses to reduce the carbon footprint of long-distance shipping. Eat more plants and less meat, as animal agriculture is a massive strain on the planet's resources. Conserve water and electricity in your homes. These are not small sacrifices. They are powerful acts of dharma. They are your personal offerings in the new Govardhan Puja. While individual action is the foundation, you must also work together. Demand that your governments and corporations act. They must invest heavily in renewable energy like solar and wind power. You have the technology. What is lacking is the political will. You must build cities that are designed for people, not just for cars, with ample green spaces, efficient public transport, and robust recycling systems. Your brightest minds should be focused not on creating the next addictive app, but on solving the challenges of energy storage, carbon capture, and sustainable agriculture. Use your incredible intelligence for preservation, not just for consumption. Teach your children to love nature. Take them to parks, forests, and rivers. Let them feel the earth beneath their feet and the sun on their faces. A child who loves nature will grow up to be an adult who protects it and cultivate empathy, the ability to feel the suffering of others, including the suffering of the planet. When you see a polluted river, feel its pain. When you see a forest burn, feel its loss. Empathy is the antidote to the selfishness that has created this crisis. It is the force that will bind you together to lift the mountain. This is my counsel, my guidance as your charioteer. The choice to act, however, is yours alone. It is important for us, the readers and listeners of this modern tale, to pause and understand its nature. This story of Krishna's return is a work of imagination, a thought experiment created by an artificial intelligence. It does not claim to be a factual event or a new scripture. No one is asserting that a blue-skinned god is holding press conferences. To take this story literally would be to miss its entire point. Myth, or mithya, as we say in India, is not about falsehood. Mithya is a subjective truth, a vehicle wrapped in narrative and symbol, designed to convey a deeper objective truth or satya. The story is the vehicle. The message is the destination. The Krishna in this essay is a metaphor. He is the personification of timeless wisdom, of our own collective conscience speaking to us. He represents the voice of Dharma that exists within all Indic thought, a voice that calls for balance, duty, and an understanding of karma, the law of cause and effect. Using the familiar and beloved figure of Krishna allows us to frame our current complex scientific challenges, like climate change and pollution, in a way that resonates with our cultural and spiritual heritage. It helps us connect the data-driven warnings of our scientists with the moral and ethical lessons of our ancestors. The story makes the abstract threat feel personal and urgent. The purpose of such a narrative is not to create a new cult or to await a literal savior. That would be another form of inaction, another way of shifting responsibility. The goal is to learn and to be inspired. By imagining Krishna explaining climate science, we are encouraged to see the ecological crisis not just as a technical problem, but as a profound spiritual and moral crisis. It is a failure of Dharma. Framing the solutions, like renewable energy and conservation, as a form of puja or yoga, gives them a sacred weight and purpose beyond mere utility. It transforms a chore into a devotional act. Therefore, read this essay not as a prophecy, but as a parable for our times. Let it serve as a bridge between the ancient soul of India and the modern challenges of the world. The power of myth is its ability to make us think and feel, to stir us from complacency and inspire us to look at our world differently. Whether the advice comes from a scientist's report or the mouth of a metaphorical god, the underlying truth is the same. Our world is in peril, and we have a collective responsibility to act. This story is simply one more way to hear that urgent and vital message. As my address drew to a close, my expression softened into one of boundless optimism. The grim warnings were not meant to induce despair, but to awaken a sense of urgency. I have shown you the darkest path, not because it is inevitable, but so that you may consciously choose another. Despair is a form of adharma, for it paralyzes you and makes you give up. Hope is the foundation of righteous action. You are the descendants of sages and seers, of brilliant mathematicians and profound philosophers. You have within you an incredible capacity for creativity, resilience, and compassion. You have faced existential crises before and have emerged wiser. Karma is not a pre-written destiny from which you cannot escape. Karma is simply action, and the law of karma states that every action has a consequence. You are not bound by the negative karma you have already created. You have free will. At every moment you can choose a new action, a new path. You can create new positive karma that can change the course of your future. The moment you decide to act for the well-being of the earth, you begin to change your collective destiny. The future is not something that happens to you. It is something you create with every choice you make today. Do not be afraid. The task ahead is great, but you are not alone. You have each other. Find strength in your communities. Work together, innovate together, and celebrate every small victory together. Let the love you have for your children be the fuel for your action. Create a world for them that is not poorer than the one you inherited, but richer in what truly matters. Clean air, pure water, healthy ecosystems, and communities built on compassion and cooperation. This is the greatest inheritance you can leave them. This is the ultimate dharma of your generation. With that, I picked up a simple bamboo flute that had been resting on the table beside me. I did not say another word. I simply began to play. The melody that filled the auditorium and streamed out to the billions watching was one of profound peace and powerful hope. It was a song that spoke of the beauty of creation, of the joy of being alive, and of the limitless potential for renewal. It was a final, divine call to action, a reminder that the dance of creation is not over, and that humanity, if it so chooses, can still learn the steps and rejoin the cosmic Lila in harmony. The music was my final message. The power to write a beautiful ending to this chapter of humanity's story rests, as it always has, in your own hands.